Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about the most profound and influential final girls in a slasher movie. At least from the slasher movies I've watched, that is. There have been millions of slasher movies and multiple final girls. But on this list, I'm only gonna name the ones I think are truly worth mentioning from slasher movies that I've seen. I haven't seen every slasher movie, and it's a pretty small, medium size, small list, I should say. Because, I don't watch that many slasher movies. I started in the 90s with Scream, worked my way up to I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, and Valentine. And then I just stopped after that. Around the 2000s, I just stopped. But I kept on with, Scream. But then in the 2010s, 2020s and stuff, I started to go back and watch the older classics because I was just very, very curious. Now, what exactly is a final girl? Well, it's in the title. For the most part, that is. A final girl is normally a lone female that survives a slasher movie at the very, very end. Normally, she can be either the main focus of the movie or she can just be part of an ensemble group. And if she's the main character, then of course, she's gonna probably make it towards the end of the movie and survive. If she's part of a group, then you have no idea who the final girl is gonna be. And then all of a sudden, there just happens to be a female, and she just so happens to survive the movie and stuff. She might survive the next movie, she might not. She might be mentioned in the other movie, she might not. Normally, a final girl can be either way. She can be like an innocent, sweet person who has done absolutely nothing wrong, and then all of a sudden just gets attacked by a killer and just happens to make it out of the movie. Or she can be a headstrong person with a good head on her shoulders. She might show intelligence, she might not. She might be fearless, she might not, might be brave, she might fight back, or she's really good at hiding, doing a bunch of hollering and screaming, running, stuff like that. Final girls are normally pretty good at evading, getting stabbed and everything. Some do if they get multiple sequels. Say Sydney. Sydney's not invincible, but she's able to make it to the end of a movie. She's headstrong, stuff like that. But for the most part, they are pretty invincible and everything. They can avoid that blade. They're able to hide in really good spots. They're able to run extremely fast and everything. And so, that's normally what the definition of a final girl is. She's your lead heroine and everything. And like I said before, sometimes she's not your lead heroine. Now, there was a book back in 1992 written by Carol J. Clover called Men, Women, and Chainsaws that explains further, the dynamic of tropes in slasher movies such as the final girl, the killer, the lover, stuff like that. Now, my list is, like I said before, is gonna be only people that I've seen in the movie. This will also only pertain to that of slasher movies. So nothing supernatural for the most part whatsoever. So nobody from Chucky, or Friday the 13th, or anything like that. Now, I will be adding people from Friday the 13th, only because for the most part, Jason really didn't start off as like that zombie thing, you know. That was just more later on down the line. But and plus there are two final girls that are very important in my opinion from like his movies. Whoever's gonna make this list, they have to have an impact on the slasher movie genre. And you know what's really sad is as I was going through this list, there's not a single person of color on this list. And that's really sad because they're all white. And normally that's how a lot of slasher movies are. You know, you'll have those like back in the old days, you'll have that maybe if you're lucky, that one lonely black person or that one lonely Latino or something like that. You know, nowadays there are a lot more. And I've never seen a black slasher movie to tell you the truth. There was one I was starting to watch on like Tubi. It was so horrible I couldn't even finish it. The acting was just too bad. Now I can watch a bad movie, but when the script is bad, the pacing is bad, the editing is bad, and the acting is bad. The acting's the nail in the coffin for me. I got to go. There have been a couple of movies I have bailed on that I've wanted to watch, you know, but I just couldn't because this set of movies on Tubi, I think it's called Stepdaughter or something like that. It's like a whole franchise, but they film all the movies in like the same year. But I could not finish it and stuff. I just couldn't. And like I wanted to add this one black actress on the list from a remake movie. I have talked about it. I don't know if I uploaded it yet or not because I recorded this stuff back in the past and then I uploaded the video ahead of time, and this video I'm making now is actually current and everything. What's the day? The 6th of October, I think. So like I'm not sure if I talked about it yet or not. But for the most part, her character is just from a remake. So it's kind of like if I was going to add her, I might as well add the one from the remake. But I didn't really want to do that. I mean, she's smart in the medical sense, but the one main reason why I'm not adding her, because in her sequel movie, she makes the stupidest decision ever. And I just thought that was so dumb and everything. Like, why would you go back to the same place all those people died? You know, like, why? You know, and then of course there was this one Latino, or there was two Latina actresses from the Scream movies, but their characters are technically still alive, but like they was only in two movies and didn't really make that much of an impact. The scandal that followed made more of an impact than everything. And so right off the bat, let me tell you this right here, right now. Lila Crane from Psycho. Now, the reason why I'm not adding her is because she died in the second movie. And some people actually consider her the very first final girl. Some do not. Like, it's debatable as to who the first final girl is. There's three. There's Lila, there's Sally, and can't think of the other one's name, but she's from some Black Christmas silent something movie. The thing about Lila is that I've never seen Psycho, so I can't judge, you know, that one. Also, I haven't seen that Black Christmas movie, or whatever it's called. Plus, from what I'm reading up about Lila, she doesn't really sound like final girl material that much, you know what I'm saying? I probably have to see the movie to be sure. But from in my opinion, I think it's Sally. Like, she's truly, in my opinion, like the first. And the reason why from the one from the Black Christmas movie is not the first is because the Chainsaw Massacre Texas one came out before the Black Christmas movie. Speaking of which, first on my list happens to be Sally from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in 1974. And she was played by Marilyn Burns. And even though Psycho came out in like 1960, which was technically considered the first American slasher and stuff, you know, I gotta add Sally to the list. Like I said before, in my opinion, she was the first final girl. Like, and the reason why she's first on my list, not number one as in my favorite, but she's at the bottom of my list, only because there's not much to Sally. She's just a nice, sweet, innocent girl. The movie does not focus on her. You know, she doesn't show no level of like intelligence. The thing about her is she's just innocent. And the reason why she's so like, memorable and everything is because she's considered the first by so many, you know what I'm saying? Like, not to mention in that chase scene, she booked it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she constantly just kept running. She wanted to live, and she ran all through the woods in the middle of the night with no light whatsoever and managed to make it to civilization. And that's the only time she stopped. But when she made it to civilization, little did she know that she ran into like a family of cannibals and stuff. Is there she was forced to sit at the dinner table, endure all that crap that the family put her through, only for her to escape. And the thing about her escape that's so famous, that just really touches people, is when she's running out the house, she gets her back slashed by the chainsaw, but she keeps on going. This truck driver tried to save her, and he ends up getting attacked, and she just left him there, and then she hopped into like the back of a truck. And as she's in the back of the truck, it's that moment, that one moment of knowing she survived. She made it and everything. And you're so happy she made it because everybody else she went with to this trip ended up dead, especially that of her cousin. And she's crying, she's dirty, she's bloody, she's thankful she's alive, and she's just crying and everything because she's scared out her mind. But then her fear turns to joy and laughter, all in just like a split second, and you almost don't really catch it. You're like, wait, is she laughing? Yes, like she's laughing and everything. She's laughing at the killer because she escaped, and he's a loser and she's a winner and everything. And that's just like, that's something that sticks in people's minds when they saw that movie. She made it. Like, she legit made it. And next on my list is Julie James from I Know What You Did Last Summer, 1997. Now, Julie James is an interesting final girl, only because when you watch her all throughout this movie, you forget she's not innocent. Like, the reason why the killer is after her is for revenge. Her and her friends were driving around, one person was drunk, and they ran over a guy. They assumed he's dead. They threw him in the ocean only for him to survive. Then somebody went down in there to get something, and it turns out he's still alive, and they just left the man for dead, made a pact to never ever talk about it. So they are guilty of a hit and run. She's it's weird. She's a final girl, but she's like an anti-final girl in a sense, only because she is partially guilty. She was not driving, and also she did not want to throw the guy in the water. She wanted to go to the police, but because of being threatened and persuaded, she went along with the lie and everything, which makes her an accomplice. And this is quite unusual because most final girls are innocent in everything, but she is not. And that's one of the things that make her so memorable. Another thing that makes her memorable is that although she is an intelligent person and went to college, the thing that she does that a lot of final girls really didn't do in the beginning was she investigated her killer. Um, well, first she investigated, like, the person that they thought they had killed, trying to figure out who he is. Because if they can find out the person that they killed, then it must be like a friend or a relative. So the fact that she's willing to go the extra mile and do some detective work really makes her stand out of all the other final girls, because the majority of them do not do that. Now, of course, trying to figure out who this killer, oh no, trying to figure out who they killed to figure out who this killer is pretty smart and everything, in my opinion. And her and Helen, they go and undercover with a fake name and try and do their best. And then, of course, when she starts putting the puzzles and the pieces together to the puzzle, she uses her actual intelligence to look up on the internet to figure out who she thinks the killer might actually be. But she is flawed. As soon as she has like a good understanding of who this killer might be, she automatically assumes it's her ex and everything. Now, Julie is not tough. At least not in this movie. And for the most part, not really in any other movie. She's kind of an old classic final girl in the sense that she runs away, she screams, she hollers, she cries, and she lets the man save the day. She's not tough like any of the other ones and doesn't really carry a gun. And so, like, in that sense, that kind of steps her back, like, at least 10, 20 years, something like that, you know what I'm saying, in terms of those older fashion final girls and stuff. Now, in her sequels, still doesn't carry a gun. She has PTSD. Nobody really knows her secret. She's a little bit tougher to when, the killer's coming around. She'll grab a weapon, but get subdued like very quickly and everything. In the third movie, she's barely there. I'm trying to block that movie out of my head. I think she still doesn't have a gun. But she still does what she does best, that detective work, like when she showed up at the very end of the movie, like Nick Fury, to talk to Brandy's character and stuff. Now, some people feel like Helen should have been the final girl. But the thing about Helen is that Helen is very selfish. She really only thinks about herself, her looks, this and that, her boyfriend, and she's not intelligent whatsoever. And she went along very quickly with the lie, and doesn't really bother her too much that they ran over a person, long as she gets away with it. Now, Julie technically is a hypocrite. Like, she's always getting on to Ray, like busting his balls and everything, and doesn't want to talk to him no more because of what happened. But she had a play in that lie and everything, like she was part of it. She was an accomplice to it. But she's not blame. She says she blames herself too, but she blames him even more and wants absolutely nothing to do with him. It's just an odd way for her to act. Next is Jenny Field, played by Amy Steele from Friday the 13th, Part 2, 1981. Now, the thing about Jenny that makes her a very interesting final girl is that she used her intelligence and stuff. And I love that. Like, she took a very, very, very ballsy move by impersonating Jason's mother. She put on Jason's mother's, like, sweater. She pulled her hair back to try to make it shorter. And she tried to trick Jason in pretending that, hey, Jason, I'm your mother. Like, don't do this and everything. And he's just kind of like, what the heck? And but then he's about to attack her until she keeps going again, like, "No, I'm your mother, and you appease me and everything, and all kind of other stuff." And I'm just like, and he's almost falling for it and everything, you know. Plus, she was smart enough to close, what is that, like a barn or something, like the double doors, and put like a giant, like, plank of wood there. And not only that, but she's tough enough to grab the pitchfork and try to kill Jason with. And to me, that was really cool because most final girls, they don't really have that level of intelligence. They're just ordinary people who just run, scream, holler, and cry. Another thing about Jenny I always liked was that she was tough as well. Like I said, not only with the pitchfork, but with like the chainsaw and everything. But there's another person who, after creating the Jenny character, they're all like, you know what? We can up that elevation up like higher and stuff in the next installment. Laurie Strode from Halloween 1978, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, this one is the most confusing of all the other people on the list because technically there are 3 different versions of Laurie Strode. Well, technically 4, but I'm not talking about the Rob Zombie movie. I'm talking about the original Halloween movies with Jamie Lee Curtis, all played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And yes, there are 3 completely different versions. So it's really hard. Like, it's just very confusing. But I decided to put her somewhere in the middle. Even though she's a lot of people's favorite. But how can she be somebody's favorite when there's 3 different versions? So you have one version that's from the first movie. Let's see, the first movie, and then the 5th movie. No, was it 5th or 6th? Let's see, the 1, 2 she was in, and 3 was that weird one. Then the 4th one was with the little girl. I think there was a 5th one with the little girl. Maybe it's the 6th movie. Whichever one is, I think H2O, maybe it's the one where she has a son in the 90s. She's like a college professor. She has a grown son and everything. That's one version. Then you have another one that's from the 1st, 2nd, and the 4th movie with the little girl that's her daughter. And in that version, she dies before the events of like the 4th movie. And so this disqualifies her from the list. Plus also the one where she had a son, she's disqualified for that because in the very next movie, she dies in the very beginning of the movie. And so like, and the thing with the little daughter, in the first movie, she's just an innocent, ordinary person. In the second movie, once again, innocent, ordinary, doesn't fight back that much. She tricks the killer in the first movie, but that's about it. And so then she dies off screen. So she's not really showing that real good final girl material, you know what I'm saying? And so she's tougher in the one where she has a son, but then she dies in the next movie. Then there is the last version where it's the first movie and then the new trilogy in the early 2020s and stuff and late 2010s. The one where she's like an older woman. And that's the one I'm going to focus on here. So the thing about her. Oh, also the one from the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th. She's the killer's sister. And so going back to the first one in the new trilogy where she's older, in the first movie, she's just an ordinary girl. We have no idea why the killer is stalking her and everything, but he just is. And so she's just a babysitter. We get to know her. She's just an ordinary person. And then the killer starts like going after her and her friends and the kids, and she's able to trick the killer in like the closet and everything. And Then, about 40 something years later, she's now an old woman. And not only that, but the thing that makes her memorable is that she's tough now. After that first experience, she's scared. She knows that something random can happen to her like that. So she fortifies her house. She toughens up. She buys tons of weapons. She has tons of guns. Her house is literally a death trap to kill this man because she fears that he might come back again, the boogeyman and everything. She lived her life. She got married. She had a daughter. She has a granddaughter. Her granddaughter's hanging out with a bad boy. She'll do whatever it takes to, like, save her family, stuff like that. And the fact that she's willing to go gun ho and Rambo on like a psycho killer and everything is, in my opinion, probably the best version of Laurie Strode. However, what is kind of odd is why would she fortify her house so heavily after that first experience? It would make more sense if she had multiple occasions with him, but she didn't. And so that's always been kind of odd in my opinion, but still, nevertheless, the older version is still the best version. Next is Chris Hughes, who's played by Dana Kimmel. And she's from Friday the 13th, part 3. Now, she is just like every old-fashioned final girl. She's sweet, she's innocent, she looks like she can't hurt a fly. She did nothing wrong. And she's part of that group ensemble. And then all of a sudden, the killer starts coming and she ends up being the final girl. What makes her memorable is that she is extremely resourceful. She was really the first true final girl to outthink her killer every step of the way. Every room she went in, she made sure the doors and windows were locked. When she ran into the barn, she locked it. She hid in like the ceiling part as he's just looking around looking for her and can't find her. She's smart enough to jump on top of him trying to distract him. She stabs him one time. She took a big like 2x4 and bopped him in the head with it. She tried to use weapons against him, like a shovel, a machete, like you name it. Like, she was not gonna go down without a fight. She was she's unestimated. Like, you don't expect her to be tough, but she is. And so that's like really eye-popping. However, I do feel like her character growth just came out of nowhere. Like, it feels very forced, because throughout the entire movie, you never get the sense that she has an edge to her, that she's resourceful, that she's really tough, that she can fight. You don't get that from her. No way throughout the entire movie. I mean, she even talks about how her mom slapped her for the first time and all this other stuff. And plus, the movie doesn't even focus on her. It's like barely, like, she's only in a good couple of scenes and it's mostly focused on like the other cast members. So it always felt kind of forced to me that she ended up being like the final girl. But I get why they made her so tough and resourceful towards the end. It's because like other final girls in the past and other female characters and stuff, they would ditzy blondes that would always take off their tops and always ended up naked and screaming and hollering and ended up dying and stuff. And so they wanted to make her very different. Now, in my opinion, Vera, played by Christina Parks, Vera was a lot tougher. She was headstrong. She had a mouth on her. She doesn't let nobody push her aside. She'll stand up for herself. She'll stand up for other people. She will put a person in their place. Also, the relationship between her and Sally was a heck of a lot better than Chris and whatever that guy name was. She even had to tell Sally, to cut it out when he used to prank everybody and stuff like that. Like, and she had a real genuine heart to her. Like, when she looked at the photo of him and his family and stuff, Chris didn't have like none of that. I mean, like, she was just kind of boring all throughout the movie. And, with Vera, we got to see her mom and her mom interaction, how they don't get along and how they argue and, stuff like that. But with Chris, we had to get a backstory about her mom hitting her and stuff like that. Now, of course, Vera was never going to be the final girl because Vera is Latina. And, the studio and producers and stuff, they probably feared that a white audience would never accept, like, a Latino being the final girl to survive, in a slasher movie, because slasher movies are predominantly white, especially back in those days. And last but not least, Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell in Scream 1996. In my opinion, Sidney Prescott is the definitive final girl. She is probably perfect in every way when it comes to that of the final girl. She has many of the attributes that makes a final girl a final girl. Everything is earned and nothing ever feels forced with her. Starting with the first movie, you gotta remember who she is. She was just a teenager at that time, and she was as innocent can be. She did nothing wrong whatsoever. The reason why the killers want her is out of revenge, not from her, but what her mother did. Her mother broke up somebody's marriage and caused the killer's mother to like abandon him. That pissed him off to where he killed the mother, but decided, you know what? Let's kill the daughter too. So he went and dated the daughter of the woman who ruined his family and stuff. And here's this innocent girl now being stalked by like a killer. One by one, well, not one by one, but like, somebody she knew at school got attacked. Then later on, the killers set their sights on her. And like, from there, she started off as just the innocent, like scared final girl. You know what I'm saying? She had a little bit of bite to her in forms of like her mouth. Like she was a little mouthy, but it took her a while to be mouthy. She even fought the killer off very early on in the movie, but very, very, very briefly. It was just a kick while she was on the ground, but still took off running after that. Every other time she saw the killer, she took off running. Towards the very, very end, after the killer revealed, this is when she started to toughen up because she was outraged. She was pissed that her boyfriend, the only reason why he dated her, the only reason why he slept with her is just to get revenge for something her mother did. And to top it off, his friend is also her friend and is also the killer. It's from there she uses her smarts to when something distracts like the killers, she hides and uses their devices and their gadgets against them. The voice changer, the costume, hid in like a closet and attack one of the killers by like, a broom. She would use any object around her as a weapon, a broom, a television, a gun, like you name it, even like a knife. And with each movie, she became stronger and smarter. Unlike Chris in the third, Friday the 13th movie, like you never suspected Chris of like being the tough girl that she was towards the end. But with Sydney, you do get those glimpses of toughness with like her facial expressions, some of the things she says, how she from how like she'll mouth off the people, from when she punched Gail, you could tell she had toughness in her. And then you get to like the second movie and she's a little bit older, a little bit more wiser. She still is like skittish and scared whenever the killer would come around. But towards the end, she just finally had enough, and she would like, distract the killer. She would like maybe like punch the killer a little bit. And always she'll use whatever she has around her as like a weapon. But then it was that car scene when the killer was knocked out in the passenger seat. She had enough. She wanted to know who the actual killer was. Knowing the first two are dead and this one is a new one, she just wants to know who this person can be, who she can hurt and go to the cops and this and that. It wasn't until the third movie she put all the tools that she had from the first two movies together to be like more equipped. Instead of fortifying her house like Lori did, she just got out of Dodge. She moved to a completely different town. She changed her name. She wouldn't let her coworkers see her at work. She stayed completely hidden. And the only person who knew was like her father and Dewey. Then she started to equip herself with like a gun. When it finally came to the final showdown with the killer, she finally started throwing down with her fist. And not only that, but also her gun. She even had like a bulletproof vest that she took from like the police station. From the fourth movie onward and everything, she just became like way more tougher. Now, in the fourth movie, she ditched the gun for whatever reason. And she just started becoming more and more wise. But this was supposed to kind of branch off into like the younger cast, but never really did. But still, she was very wise, even taking out her own cousin, not showing no sympathy when her cousin was the killer. Then you get to the fifth movie and now she has like daughters and she's married. She's equipped with like a gun and everything, but sadly that was not supposed to be her movie no more. They wanted to move the franchise to a younger audience and a younger character, and she's barely in that movie. Then come the sixth movie and she's not even in it. Thank God she's coming back for the seventh, because this is her franchise. And, she has stuck with this thing since 1996, going from a teenager to a young adult to like a much more like older adult. Probably like in her 40s or 50s now, the character and stuff, and unlike Jamie Lee Curtis only left this franchise because she just got tired of it twice and just wanted to leave very early on. But with like Neve Campbell, she only left when she was disrespected after the fifth movie and stuff, and came back when they offered her a buttload of money. But she never left this franchise just to like leave it because she got tired of it, because she still did other projects and stuff. Granted, the other movies she did, nobody's never heard of. She's done TV shows, but I've never heard of them because I don't live in Canada. But, she only left the franchise when she was disrespected and came back when they respected her again. And so, in my opinion, she is the definitive, final girl. She's quick thinking, she's smart, she's tough. She knows how to use weapons. She knows how to evade certain situations and how to stay hidden. She knows not to trust people and stuff, she is the ultimate final girl. Now, like I said before, these are only my final girl list from slasher movies I've seen. I've seen other slasher movies with other final girls, but they just could not make that list for whatever reason. They weren't memorable. They weren't you forget about them and stuff. And even though they have attributes that make them final girls, there was just that one spark that prevented them from making the list. Now, wasn't that spooky? Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.